All right, guys, it's Tony Corcoran, School Transportation News. I want to start off the podcast a little different this week. I want to send our prayers and thoughts to the families at Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. The tragic shooting last week was horrible. Mass shooting, 3 students killed, 3 staff members. We've got a story up on the website about it, but I just wanted to extend our heartfelt condolences and heavy hearts this week, recording and thinking about the school. And I've got Ryan Gray with me too on the podcast, and Ryan and Taylor have been following this story heavily, and I wanted to kind of flip it to you, Ryan, real quick before we dive in deeper on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, it's the latest tragedy. Unfortunately, it's becoming a common occurrence. Over 125 mass shootings now in the U.S. in 2023 alone, and we're just in April. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And I know that, some folks say, well, mass shooting can be, a gang-related drive-by. It can be, a homicide in the house. Basically, 4 people are shot. But it just, regardless, that's semantics. It's just, reached this level of, I don't even know what to say. I mean, it's just nuts, crazy, sad, sick. And again, it's just the latest reminder to school employees, school officials of the importance to safeguard as much as possible. And, Tony, I'm sure you've seen the video that's already been out. The Metro Nashville Police Department released body cam footage from their police officers, released surveillance footage from the school. And I've talked to at least one law enforcement expert and agreed that, unlike some of the other recent incidences that we've seen, Uvalde last year in Texas, law enforcement did what they were supposed to do. I mean, I think within 13 or 14 minutes of the 911 call, they had entered the building, swept through it, and killed the perpetrator, the assailant. I think within 6 minutes of actually getting to school, they ended the threat. And of course, the 6 lives lost, tragic. Those families are never going to be the same. And, again, our hearts go out to their immediate families, their extended families, their friends, coworkers, fellow students. It could have been worse, and we've seen it be worse. So if there's anything to be taken from this, I think that it went, as I don't want to say better, but the outcome was better than what we've seen. So, one of the things that stuck out to me in watching the video was that, all reports said all the doors were locked, but the shooter shot out the windows. Bulletproof windows. I know a lot of schools are going to that. Now, this is a private Christian school, but a lot of public schools have gone to bulletproof windows. If the windows were bulletproof, that shooter might not have ever been able to access the building. You think of windows on school buses. Do they need to be bulletproof? I know we've done active shooter training at STN Expo, where we've worked with local SWAT teams. And of course, they might need to respond obviously to school building situations, but also school buses. What is, bulletproof windows lead? Just a lot of things that you can always look at from an incident and try to learn from. And that's, again, unfortunately, we're back to square one with that learning, and something else has happened. How do we dissect that as an industry? How do we move forward with the latest plans in place to safeguard the employees, safeguard the students?
Yeah, it's about the kids, Ryan. It's about how school buses are safe, right? And we talked about this on the last podcast, Taylor and I. We had broken down the Chowchilla kidnapping. Obviously, we were talking about that shooting in Colorado that targeted administrators. Now goes into this. It's concerning, right? And we see escalating violence against school bus drivers. I believe it was a parent in Boston attacks school bus driver and, says, don't mess with my kid, right? We don't know the details, but here it is, a parent punching the face in of a school bus driver, bloody eye, lip. I mean, people are doing things that are more aggressive than ever. It's getting more egregious. I think it really comes down to training, and training. We can throw technology on it to kind of help mitigate the people's act against it. But when they're so aggressive and it's so egregious, it's almost like it can't be stopped. You have to defend yourself. So these are deeply concerning times, Ryan.
Absolutely. And going back, 8 years or so when we did the SWAT training at STN Expo Reno. Now, we had seen some school shootings, but it hadn't reached the fever pitch that it has now. But back then and even today, security experts are saying, the most realistic incident that school bus drivers, school bus personnel are going to see is what you mentioned, that parent coming to the school bus stop. They're mad. We've seen a big uptick in these types of stories over the past year with the driver shortage and buses being late picking up students. This obviously affects parents' ability to get to work. They're, certainly not responding in the correct way, but a lot of frustration boiling over for, I read a lot of the Facebook groups out there, or, some of the comments on articles, and hear folks, even people that email us that are parents and say, hey, what do we do? I've emailed the transportation department umpty-ump number of times. I've called them. I've talked to a supervisor. They passed me over to this person. Then they passed me over to this person. I got a voicemail. So it's responsiveness. Everybody in all facets of society are short-staffed right now. There's not enough time. But, again, what can transportation do to the best of its ability? And sometimes, maybe that's where some of the technology that you mentioned, Tony, can step in, things that can help streamline things. But so many of these instances can be curtailed way before it gets to this point. Now, certainly the Covenant school shooting, there were some mental health issues going on with the assailant. We know that mental health is a horrendous problem in society, especially coming out of COVID. But, what can transportation do to try to, look at its customer service, look at its training, look at its security, kind of take that whole approach to try to mitigate these things from happening.
Yeah, thanks for those thoughts, Ryan. Before we transition to some more discussion on that, I want to recognize our sponsors this week. TransFinder, always with us. They're the leader in school bus routing software. And also we have a new sponsor, that's Zoom. They're a student transportation provider. So we thank them both for being with us on the podcast this week as our sponsors.
Yes. And speaking of Zoom, when we're looking at the latest news, Financial Times had them on their fastest growing 500 companies, I think for the second year in a row. I think they came in at like number 228. So I want to congratulate them on that as well.
Yeah, so I guess they would be considered the fastest growing school bus contractor in the country.
I believe they were the only one on there that was from school transportation. So
excellent. Well, thanks for bringing that nugget up, Ryan. Appreciate that. Also, as we break down more about what happened in Nashville, the discussion then always transitions to what can we do as an industry to be better? How do we be more vigilant? How does security training come up? And I know Ryan brought up STN Expo. And Ryan, this topic is ripe for some in-person training at STN Expo. I'm sure you've got your wheels spinning on security experts, people that we can bring in. Kind of what's on your mind with respect to this? What can we do to kind of help elevate the conversation for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big learning opportunities is our keynote on July 18th. That is actually right before the trade show. So there will be lunch served. We're going to hear from John Van Driel. He is a renowned school psychologist. He runs his own firm now. He previously was the school psychologist for Salem Kaiser School District in Oregon. He's developed some, like I said, renowned training on threat assessments for schools. And of course, he worked extensively, and his team worked extensively with the transportation department there at Salo Kaiser. I mean, he's worked with the FBI. So he's going to have a talk about some of those indicators. And then, we also have our friend Brett Brooks from Gray Ram Tactical. He is also a Missouri Highway Patrol law enforcement officer. He's been a member of the SWAT teams, led SWAT teams actually. And speaking of that Reno training we did years back, he helped with that training when we trained the Washington County Sheriff's Office there in Reno, their SWAT team on responding to school bus incidents. So he's going to look at weapons detection. That's going to be one of the big topics that's going to be out there. And we've done some of these years back. Some of you who have been to Reno might recall Chris Dorn, who at the time worked for Safe Havens International. And Mike Dorn, of course, his dad, he's on our editorial advisory board. But Chris would walk into the room, look like, he was a young man at the time, but looked like a teenager, would wear baggy pants and, a sweatshirt with a hoodie, and would proceed to pull out all like sawed-off shotguns, semi-automatic rifles, grenades, nunchucks, knives, guns and guns and guns and guns.
It's an assortment of weapons, though, right?
Exactly.
It's shocking how many he pulls out.
I don't know if at this point, if Brett is going to be doing something similar, but he is a law enforcement officer. He trains extensively on identifying when someone has a weapon and you don't actually see that. So many states now, they have the conceal and carry laws. Of course, if there are children, going on the bus, they shouldn't have them at all. But, we were talking earlier about parents, coming up to the school bus. How do you know if a parent's packing heat when they're walking up to the school bus? So, we're going to have some really good topics that we're planning. Of course, we're going to be bringing out to Indianapolis. We're going to be bringing Katrina Falk from the Michigan Association for People Transportation down to talk about Michigan's school bus driver security training, which we had at Reno last year. This is a statewide program, and actually they have the mandate that they can teach this course to other states. So a lot of states have actually signed on and requested that training. So I know the folks in Michigan have been busy teaching that course to other states. So Katrina is going to be handling that as well in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and guys, if you're interested in joining us at STN Expo in Indianapolis, that's June 2nd through the 6th. And then also STN Expo in July is July 14th through the 19th. So lots of great training, lots of great speakers. Get up to speed on all the latest security training there, as kind of Ryan was referencing, some great keynotes, great breakout sessions. So must attend stuff, guys. Got to be up to date on all this important security training for your staff, for the protection of your kids. It's deeply important. Want to make sure everybody is dialed in. So stnexpo.com for everything that you need. Guys, if you're considering school bus contracting, you're going to want to listen to this message from our sponsor. From Zoom, the company that's reimagining student transportation, Zoom partners with school districts nationwide to provide safe, reliable, sustainable, and equitable student transportation for all. Its innovative technology optimizes school routes, tracks children's safe on-time arrival and departure, and connects parents, drivers, and school administrators. Zoom is in the process of transitioning its entire multi-size fleet to electric vehicles and is the first and only 100% carbon neutral transportation company. Learn more about Zoom at www.ridezum.com. That's ridezoom.com. All right, guys, if you haven't seen it yet, the April issue is out, hot off the presses. Well, the digital presses, at least. You probably haven't gotten your paper copy yet, but it's in the mail. It's coming. We have the Superintendent of the Year. And guess what? Miss Taylor Ekbatani is going to be interviewing him coming up on the podcast a little bit later. Super excited for that conversation. All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's, she was out there in San Antonio. She got a lot of coverage out there and talking a lot about superintendent type issues. And speaking of which, that's what our April issue is all about. So it's out now. You guys can go ahead and check out the magazine. We got lots of great topics. Of course, we're looking at that feature on the Superintendent of the Year Award. We're talking funding. We have our salary survey. So that'll be interesting. We actually asked readers to weigh in not only on their drivers and their mechanics, that's dominated the headlines a lot, but ask them, what's the salaries for transportation directors, transportation supervisors, routers, dispatchers, attendants. So you can catch that along with, of course, looking at future proofing of electric. We have a Q&A with the leadership change, I guess, if you will, at Navistar and IC Bus with Trish Reed and Justina Morrison.
And we had Justina on the podcast just last week. So great conversation there.
Absolutely. Great timing.
Perfect. Yeah, guys. And then in my editorial, I actually do talk about some of the things that are happening out there. We do break down the Chowchilla kidnapping a little more and kind of lessons learned from that. Talked about it in the last couple of podcasts, as well as, some of the school bus violence that's going on, just violence in general at schools, around schools, and kind of what to be thinking about and kind of some behavioral best practices. So really great read this month, Ryan. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much for working so hard on another great issue. All right, guys, got a special announcement from the dynamic duo. Hey, Ryan, do you remember the dynamic duo Batman and Robin from the old 60s show Bang Boom Pow, right? Well, there's a new dynamic duo on the scene. That's TransFinder's Route Finder Plus and Wayfinder. Route Finder Plus is TransFinder's award-winning industry-leading routing solution, and Wayfinder is the driver app that is changing the way drivers and subs approach their routes. Together, this pair provides the winning combination to help combat your school transportation woes, including driver shortage, inefficiencies, student discipline issues, while helping you improve the driver experience. Route Finder Plus is intuitive, browser-based, and includes route optimization to help you build the most efficient routes possible. Wayfinder, the driver app, provides turn-by-turn instructions and allows users to take attendance and work seamlessly with Plus. You guys can learn more about this dynamic duo by emailing getplus@transfinder.com or giving them a call at 800-373-3609. Next up is our guest, Kevin McGowan, Superintendent of Schools at Brighton CSD in New York, with Taylor Ekbatani.
All right, nation, I have a celebrity guest on for us today. So very excited to welcome Dr. Kevin McGowan. He is the superintendent of Brighton Central Schools in Rochester, New York. So hello, welcome.
Thanks so much, Taylor. Really thrilled to be here.
And if you guys don't know Dr. Kevin McGowan, his name has been everywhere. The April issue is out, so he is the National Superintendent of the Year. He's our cover star. There's a whole article about him. So if you guys haven't read it or if you haven't heard his name, I don't know what you're doing, because he is all over the STN online website. So
my mother has gotten the word out well, Taylor, for sure.
Oh, so everyone should know you by now. And now we can finally, put a voice to the face on the cover. I feel like in virtual, we're doing it opposite, but this way it's different. So it's nice.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So before we get into the actual interview, I have to ask you a super important question. Okay. We were both in San Antonio for the National Conference on Education. And that's where, you were announced the National Superintendent of the Year. But what did you think of the food?
The food was fantastic. I have to say, before the award, I'm not sure how much of it I ate. I was a little anxious. It was an interesting, experience, not one that any of us in our line of work are usually involved in. And the enormity of the situation and the moment and the conference itself was probably precluding me from eating too heavy. But after I certainly enjoyed some great bites after that.
Yeah, I'm a taco obsessor, so that was my jam.
You were in the right place.
Awesome. So why don't you start by talking a little bit about, Brighton Central Schools? Give us kind of the breakdown. Are you guys rural, urban? How many students attend?
Sure. We're a 3,500 student district, medium to large size district here in the state of New York. First ring suburb to Rochester, New York. So upstate New York, Great Lakes area. We are a relatively diverse community, particularly for a suburban district. High achieving. We have diversity both in terms of race, ethnicity, religious diversity, significant socioeconomic diversity. I've been here 14 years now, and over the time I've been here, we've pretty significantly increased our diversity in many, many ways, but particularly socioeconomic diversity. But like I said, a high achieving place, kids and families are really engaged in their school community. We tend to play a relatively central role to the town of Brighton. Again, itself a first-ring suburb and a place with a lot of very invested, deeply educated, thoughtful humans who are sending their kids here. And really people desire to be a part of our school community, which is a great, great thing.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in the article also that you guys have really worked on your graduation rates. And so you're one of the highest in the state, I believe.
I think we if we're not, we're rapidly approaching that. Sure. So we're 98% of our kids graduated last year. And really the story for us has been about the closing of gaps in terms of our achievement. Not too long ago, we were at 89% of our kids graduating, which is really not somewhere it ever should have been, but a pretty significant disparity between groups of students. So in other words, at that time, our Black or African American students graduated at just 54% in that particular year relative to that overall rate of 89%. This year was 98% for all students. And the gap has closed for every one of our marginalized groups, I would refer to it best as. So Black students, African American, socioeconomically diverse, students with learning disabilities, you name the group, they are at or above or near 98%. So achievement now is for all students, not just some students.
Mm-hmm. And I know you said that was like a true success, being able to reach that for all students. So congratulations to you there.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what it should be all about, right? Success for some kids is not really true success. It's success for all kids that we've been focused on, closing those gaps, being very intentional in that work and addressing the individual needs of every student, every group of students, kind of confronting that and having the courage to confront that data. It's really made a big difference for us.
Mm-hmm. And I know when I was talking to you earlier for the article that's in the April issue, you're very humble about winning this award. And I don't know if you guys can hear it on the other end, as listeners, but you kept saying, it's so weird that it's an individual award when you don't necessarily feel that it's an individual accomplishment. So can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it absolutely isn't, because I have to tell you, I've never taught global studies. I've never been the economics teacher, and I've never been a counselor at the high school level, much less a kindergarten teacher or, the sixth grade English teacher, all of whom have contributed significantly to this happening for our kids. I work with a leadership team that is among the absolute best in the business. They are tight, they're thoughtful, they're committed to every individual child. I work with the Board of Education, who I find uncommonly committed to each and every individual student and to their work as public servants. And I work with a teaching support staff and an entire staff of 600 people who has made it their business to address the individual needs of all children. I'm not feigning humility in the sense that I work hard at it. I try and do a good job. I think like all of my colleagues, we try and be the best version of ourselves each day. But make no mistake, this has happened because other people were willing to take the message to where it needed to be and make it happen for kids. I talk often about our high school principal, Dr. Tom Hall, who, we had courageous conversations, the two of us initially, about graduation rate and things that could be done. But it could have also ended there. And it didn't. It was him then that went into the next room to say, okay, what do we do about X, Y, and Z? And then people that he worked with to go into the next room to say, okay, then what are we going to do about A, B, and C? And then other people in the organization from top to bottom who've made that their business. So really, truly, genuinely appreciate the honor. And it's been such a gift. And I'm so incredibly grateful. I just really feel very strongly that it's about a lot of people getting that done, and that what we did was present the work of the district. And that in its essence, I think, is what's being recognized.
And I know you mentioned to me when you were standing up there and you heard your name, you actually, it was hard for you to process that one name was going to be said as opposed to, your school district.
Oh yeah, I get a little bit lost for words in it because like I said, I mean, it really is the work of so many people, and the idea that it would be one person is really just kind of out of the norm for the way we think about the work. And I think it's incredible that AASA and with Sponsors Corbridge and First Student are recognizing an individual superintendent and providing a process for that recognition and a very thoughtful, reflective process for us to think about our work, present that work, and for it to be recognized. I think that's great. Don't get me wrong. But I also really think that, it is about the work of everybody making that happen. So the idea that it would be one individual feels a little bit funny because we work on all of these things together. Again, exceptionally grateful for it, but I really don't think it happens because of one person in any way, shape, or form.
And it just so happens that you guys actually contract out your transportation services to First Student. So how did that partnership come about? How has it been beneficial for your school district?
Sure. So, the district had its own transportation fleet and moved away from that to contract transportation before I joined the district. My understanding is that was a decision at the time that was motivated by the economics of it, that it just made much more sense to contract with, a first-class provider who could maintain a fleet at a very high level, maintain an experienced and trained driving staff as well, and had the capacity to do that from an organizational perspective. And so the decision was made at that point that it just made a lot of sense for the district to find experts who could do that work with them. And that was not to say that there wasn't a lot of good work done likely by our internal transportation staff at the time, but I think it was really thoughtful in what a lot of districts have found to be a good solution for them. And I will tell you that First Student is a great, great partner for us and works very closely with us to make sure that we've got the right people driving buses, the right buses on the road, and that kids are getting to the right place at the right time. And they do a really excellent job of that. So we appreciate their support and their partnership.
Mm-hmm. And what's kind of the importance of, administrators having that good working relationship with transportation?
So students are an unpredictable variable, and their schedules are, and the weather is, and, there's a lot of things that we can't always control for. And so you want to make sure that the things you can control for, you have a good handle on, and that the partners who you're working with can help accommodate those unpredictable moments and can be responsive to that. And so if you were to work with a provider that is not willing to take the call, to make adjustments, to be flexible, and to really parallel the flexibility that is needed for kids and families, you're going to have a significant problem, I think, in adjusting to the many variables that are out of your control. And so they are that partner that we can pick the phone up, make adjustments at a moment's notice, and are really thoughtful about that and understand the need we have to be responsive to the people paying the bill, our community members, our taxpayers, and the people that are putting the centers of their universe, their loved ones, on that bus each and every day. They are such a great partner in responding to what we express as needs to make sure we're doing that the right way.
Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned, when we were talking for the article, that transportation really serves at its core, that basic fundamental need of getting students to school on time safely. So how, in this next, 5-10 years of your leadership, how will transportation play a role in your goals going forward?
So it really, for us, our success has been about flexibility, about individual options, individual answers for students. And so that really requires flexibility in all parts of the system: schedule, food, transportation, the support services. So if you're talking about creating flexibility for children and their program and their needs, then the systems that support them across the board have to be flexible as well, right? From your cleaning of the buildings, your maintenance of the buildings, your energy use in the buildings, all of the support systems. But transportation plays a huge role in that as a primary support system. So if we're offering additional tutoring, for example, or enrichment type programming, extracurricular activities that maybe we aren't right now because we see a new need. They all require getting kids to and from the building. If we're really thinking about equity in all the work that we do and getting kids into the building to have access to programs that are easily accessible by those that might have transportation from their home, from their families, we really need to make sure we're providing that support service, and we need a flexible partner in doing that. So transportation plays just this essential role. And in our safety planning and a variety of the systems we have in place to support the organization, we of course count on transportation. But really it's that notion of flexibility. It's that notion of responding to needs. It's that notion of being able to think about the schedule in ways that will meet kids' needs differently. It requires getting them there differently at different times and in different ways. And transportation is the way that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And, I have to ask, especially in response to recent events, kind of changing the conversation a little bit, as we're recording this, day before the Nashville school shooting happened, 6 people were killed, 3 children, and not even just school shootings, but, this overall increase and spike in violence in general. How is Brighton Central Schools kind of handling this? The conversations that you guys are having, are there any plans in place? Of course, this is something no one ever wants to plan for, but I think in our recent day and age, it's kind of shown that it's important to have some sort of plan or preparation in place.
Well, we have a very active safety team that meets throughout the year. And we consult with a variety of experts locally and work very closely with our local police department. Our administrators are on a regular basis doing tabletop drills, attending a variety of trainings, workshops. This is something that we take as seriously as you could. Now, I will say my colleagues in other districts that have been at the receiving end in these terrible tragedies, and what a moment to pause and reflect on the loss of 6 lives and 3 children and 3 adults whose families assumed that when they went to work, they'd be safe in those spaces. I think at the end of the day, it's that pause that's so important, and that reflection, and not becoming just so used to the regularity of these tragedies. And we think a lot about that. We communicated to our school community, each of the building principals did, to the staff in each building about how to support. We prepare from a safety perspective. We manage on a regular basis the ups and downs of children and families and staff members, and try and be intimately aware of the mental health needs of people in our school community, be connected to everybody in our school community as best we can. We feel that those measures are some of the most important measures you can take to stay safe. That, again, is not to say that in Nashville or Parkland or Newtown, for that matter, they didn't do those same things. And unfortunately, we're again, terribly tragic victims of an awful situation. But for us, it's about that staying in touch with each and every family, staying in touch with each and every child and staff member, and then having the more hardened entrances and security features, security staff who's well-trained, cameras, those types of measures that are also important, and they're required as part of our due diligence. But it's about approaching the mental health side of it and creating a loving, caring, supportive school community that we think is very important in this moment.
Mm-hmm. And I know we talked a little bit, kind of about how these recent events and these pressures in education, right? Like, no teacher should have to go to work wondering, if there's going to be a shooter. And so I know that's kind of changed your leadership style just through the years. I think you said you've been with Brighton 14 years or so. So how, these new pressures in education have kind of sculpted your everyday?
It has. I mean, I first became a superintendent 17 years ago in another district, and it was very easy to walk in and out of buildings, right? It was a very different world. I was an elementary principal where anybody could walk in and had pretty unlimited access. There was barely the notion of signing in, actually, for a lot of people 20 years ago. It has shifted our thinking. It is the number one topic on our list all of the time. And it's not that it ever wasn't the most important thing people would do. They, of course, would have recognized that. I take myself 20 years ago as an elementary principal. I took that very seriously, but I wasn't thinking about the hardened entrance and the sign-in process. And we really were thinking more about making sure that when we released kids and people signed their kids out, that it was the right person signing the child out. But we didn't have the same daily anxiety that we do now over these incidents. And that was even post-Columbine, right? Those things were on our mind, but not the way they are right now. Certainly right now, this is the ever-present situation that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. And I think you mentioned, just having those conversations, being there for your staff, being there for the students, and just, constantly communicating so that they know, you're there.
Well, we're playing a different role too, right? So school over time has become the place where people are processing their struggles with society, their concerns, their anxieties. And yes, as you mentioned, us being there as the family support structure in so many ways for kids, for families, for community members, the place where people are trying to sort through their own political anxieties and their social anxieties, whatever their struggles might be. It seems to all kind of be coming home to roost at school for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. I know, these aren't the conversations that we want to be having, but they are the important ones. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that with us.
They sure are. Thank you.
And thank you again for jumping on the podcast. I know as a celebrity now, you're probably being pulled in every direction. So it's good that you still, came back to STN Online for the podcast. We appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. I could only require my kids to ask for my autograph so many times before I had to do something different. So thanks for this and for really a great conversation and all of your support too.
Yes, thank you so much. And again, you guys, if you haven't read the April issue, definitely go check it out, see what Dr. McGowan looks like in person. And yeah, thank you so much again. And I look forward to continue working with you.
I look forward to it too. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Hey, special thanks to Kevin, Taylor, Ryan. Appreciate you all coming on the podcast. Great conversations. Really want to thank our episode sponsors, TransFinder and Zoom. So glad you're with us. Guys, make sure and check out our sponsors. Go visit them. Give them a call. Let them know we sent you. Visit stnonline.com for all the latest, everything happening in the school transportation industry. stnexpo.com for all the best content you're going to get in person this summer. Check it out. We got early bird and super early bird discounts to lock in. We've got an April 14th deadline for Reno to save $200, so don't miss that. Remember, guys, you can subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods. Make sure to share it with your friends. We love more listeners, nation. Can't wait to talk to you next week. Take care. We love you.